The Disney Channel was first launched in April of 1983, with its original slate of programming being live-action sitcoms and preschool shows based on older animated properties such as Welcome to Pooh Corner and Dumbo Circus. During the 90s, it would become a second home for syndicated animated shows, some of which were made by Disney, some of which not so much. But as we neared the new millennium, the channel was getting tired of bumming off its sister networks for animated programming. They wanted cartoons they could call their own. Meanwhile, animator Bruce W. Smith had just finished producing a pilot for his own animated series for Nickelodeon, which the execs promptly passed on. Shocking, I know. Bruce then brought his idea to Disney, where he currently worked. Having contributed as an animator to movies like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, A Goofy Movie, and Tarzan, Disney gave his pitch the go-ahead, and 2 years later, in September of 2001, the Disney Channel would premiere its first ever original animated series. Hiya folks, welcome to the show. My name's the Glad and Gladiator, and it's my mission to info dump about everything Disney animation on the internet. Today, in celebration of the series' 20th anniversary and in anticipation for its vastly approaching Disney Plus revival, we're going to be looking back on the Proud Family franchise. Well, I'd say look back, but truth be told, I haven't actually seen that much of the Proud Family. The only full episode that I have seen is the Kwanzaa special, which I watched last year while working on my Disney Holiday Specials video. So if I'm going to talk about it, I should probably take care of that. So, see you in a few days.
The Proud Family.
Airing from 2001 to 2005 on Disney Channel, The Proud Family centres around a bloodline named after my favourite of the 7 deadly sins, the Prouds, consisting of eldest daughter Penny, her father Oscar, her mother Trudy, Oscar's mother Sugar Mama, and her dog Puff, and the twins Baby and Cece. We follow their various escapades in Whizville, California, a city pretty much entirely owned by a single, faceless, overly wealthy, morally dubious basketball player. Don't question it. To this day, the series is still heavily lauded for its diverse cast, unique art direction, and willingness to tackle an array of complex subject matter, such as xenophobia, the sexualization of young girls in the music industry, and dementia. And it does all that, plus making comments about the divide between the upper and middle class, all while being one of the funniest animated shows I've ever seen. During its 4-year run, The Proud Family spanned 52 episodes, a crossover special, and a Disney Channel original movie that served as the series finale. Not bad for a failed Nicktoons pilot. However, for all the praise the show has received for its progressive themes, it's still a series from 20 years ago, which begs the question, how much does it actually hold up? And perhaps even more importantly, can it still work in present day? Only one way to find out. Since we're talking about the Proud Family, it only makes sense that we start off by talking about the Proud Family. Penny Proud, as previously stated, is the eldest child of the household at 14 years old and the central protagonist of the series. She's outspoken, intelligent, artistically gifted, and has a strong moral compass. Most of Penny's stories focus on her attempts to prove herself to everyone around her, whether it be trying to show her maturity to her overbearing father, or going undercover as a delinquent in an effort to get into the school newspaper. Despite her self-righteousness though, she is still a kid and often caves to peer pressure and is unable to identify whenever she's in over her head. Penny is such a brilliantly crafted protagonist who provides a good role model for young girls while still having many flaws that make her feel very human. Oscar Proud is the heavily opinionated and stubborn patriarch of the family. He's the founder and only human worker of Proud Snacks, a business obsessed with combining pork with every other flavour which often sends people straight to the ICU, yet he still somehow remains in business. Guess he can afford all the lawsuits since he doesn't have to pay his employees because they're all monkeys. As for Oscar himself, he is mostly the straw man of the series, a character that mostly exists to be proven wrong, as he's incredibly misogynistic, selfish, and overall very unpleasant a lot of the time. Yet he's also somewhat of a tragic character, a man whose life has been defined by failure and has grown bitter at a world that always seems out to get him, and as we see time and time again, yeah, it is. Sure, sometimes his fate is entirely caused by his own stupidity, but at the same time you do start to feel bad for this guy who's genuinely trying even though the universe always keeps success just slightly out of his reach. Trudy Proud is the level-headed and compassionate mother who holds her family together, even though most of the time that amounts to just keeping Oscar in check. She comes from a wealthy family and often finds herself in the shadow of her relatives such as her Broadway star sister Diana. Trudy's main role in the series is to be a strong emotional pillar for Penny, often giving her important and sometimes brutally honest advice. Trudy is definitely the least defined of the main cast, in that her character isn't as exaggerated as the rest of the family, but she's an essential part of the series who provides a lot of the emotional core. Sugar Mama takes the phrase "you're only as young as you feel" to its furthest extremes, being an adrenaline-fueled pensioner who loves wrestling and may very well be the strongest person on the planet. She's Oscar's sassy mother who is always quick to remind him of his track record when it comes to failing at life, but does really love him deep down. Deep down. Her relationship with Trudy is much more positive and emotionally healthy as she has great respect for her, and she's a very attentive and loving grandmother to Penny and the twins, often being the only one who really listens to Penny and encourages her to have fun behind her parents' back. The final three members of the family are Sugar Mama's dog Puff and the twins Baby and Cece, who are all non-verbal characters that mostly exist to be used as plot devices or for the sake of comedy, especially in season 1 where Puff was mainly used as Oscar's understudy in the role of the series' punching bag, and when they finally move past that, he just sort of fades into the background. Baby and Cece fare a little better, mostly just in the fact they're babies, so they can't exactly be thrown around like ragdolls, as they often act as either an obstacle for Penny to overcome or motivation for her to do the right thing. Then, like any animated sitcom, the supporting cast is well developed and numerous, so we'll just go over some of the highlights. Bobby Proud is Oscar's brother who receives all the love and support from Sugar Mama that he doesn't. So, all of it. I wouldn't say he's much of a character per se, and more of a gimmick, as his thing is that he sings every other phrase. If he does have a role in the series, it's to be a foil to Oscar, as Bobby is the exact opposite in every way. He lacks any real drive or ambition, and despite aimlessly drifting through life, often has success and prosperity handed to him. Across the street from the Prouds is the Boulevardises, a much wealthier family who can afford all the amenities Oscar could only dream of. They consist of Felix, Oscar's best friend who enhances some of his worst traits, his wife Sunset, who is Trudy's closest ally and also works as a police officer, Felix's father Pappy, who is the object of Sugar Mama's affection, a situation he isn't thrilled about as almost every word out of his mouth is some kind of insult directed towards her. However, she never catches onto this because Pappy can only speak in Spanish. He's most known for being an homage to the version of the Joker from the 60s Batman series, particularly in his laugh, which precedes every insult he delivers to Sugar Mama.
Come on, Pappy. I know you want to dance with me.
Yo preferiría bailar con lobos.
Then there's Lacienega Boulevardes, Penny's frenemy who is always out to one-up her and destroy her social life, yet Penny can never convince anyone else of her true intentions because she has the rest of the world convinced she's this sweet, polite, innocent girl. That's all I'm going to say on her for the moment, but believe me, we'll come back to Lacienega later in the video. Dejanay Jones is Penny's best friend. Apparently. She's loud, obsessive, and very selfish, often willing to ditch Penny at the drop of a hat. She has a crush on one of Penny's other friends, Sticky Web, which she takes to a very disturbing level. And I will be coming back to Dejanay later when I address some of the more problematic issues of the show. Zoey Hauser is Penny's real best friend, or at least the best friend she's got. Zoey is incredibly shy and insecure when it comes to her looks, but she never lets that stop her from being unapologetically herself. Just don't give her any sort of semblance of power, as she does not handle it well. Sticky Web is Penny's best guy friend and also a tech genius, because that was the last box we had to tick off for early 2000s Disney cartoon bingo. Michael Collins is Penny's other guy friend who is often the target of bullying due to his flamboyant nature. Also, he has an emotionally abusive father. Almost done. Next up are the Gross Sisters, consisting of Nubia and her non-verbal siblings Olay and Gina, and they assume the role of the neighbourhood bullies in the series. However, as it goes on, they do start to eventually get more depth, especially with Olay. And finally we have Wizard Kelly, the long since aforementioned faceless, overly wealthy, morally dubious basketball player who owns the entire town and everyone in it. His various underhanded ways of making money often brings him into conflict with either Penny or Oscar. And take away the fact he's a basketball player for a second. This is a show funded and produced by Disney that features a corrupt capitalist who has a monopoly over everything that was released 8 years before Disney bought Marvel. And part of me can't escape the feeling that was 100% intentional.
You know, it all started with an orange basketball.
The Proud Family lasted a grand total of 2 seasons, which have a lot more differences between them than you'd expect. So it only makes sense that we look at each of them individually and see how the show managed to evolve over its relatively short run. The Proud Family Season 1 premiered on September 15th, 2001 with the episode Bring It On, which was the 5th episode produced, even though chronologically this one comes first. This actually isn't a rare occurrence when it comes to animated series, as oftentimes the creators will opt to make a few standard episodes first so the writers can find their footing and get comfortable with the characters before making the official first episode. A prime example of this in modern animation would be Gravity Falls. Did you really think I'd make a video about a cartoon without finding some way to talk about production codes and airing order? Okay, let's take a look at the Proud Family Season 1. Not only the debut of this show, but also Disney Channel original cartoons in general. I'm not going to talk about every single episode because I'd like this video to be done sometime this year. I'm just going to go over ones I feel best highlight certain aspects of the show or are just important to the series overall. Episode 1, Bring It On, is about the Prouds meeting the Boulevardises when they move in across the street, as Penny and Lacienega have to compete for the final spot on the school's cheer team as well as Dejeuner's friendship. Meanwhile, Oscar and Felix hit it off instantly, bonding over their mutual love of sports and not being around their wives. Penny and Lacienega's feud ends with her accidentally enlisting the help of the Gross Sisters.
I wish I never had to look at her ever again.
As in you would never want anything bad to happen to her, right?
I just wish she wasn't around ruining my life.
So now Penny must do whatever she can to stop them, even if it means sacrificing her chance at making the team. This episode is one of the best introductory episodes to a show I have ever witnessed, in that it quickly establishes all the major characters and how the world works. It straight away sends the message that this isn't what you'd expect from a cartoon in 2001. These characters often don't get to come out on top. Our protagonist's best friend will turn her back on them at a moment's notice. And there's this underlying cruelty to everything, which is in stark contrast to the show's wacky tone. Yet despite the fact these two elements create a large dissonance, they work together surprisingly well, leading to something that unmasks the harsh reality of the world, but through the lens of a Tex Avery cartoon. While Bring It On is an excellent start to the show, I felt episode 3, Strike, is where the Proud Family finally found its footing. Penny has grown tired of her minimal allowance, and everyone else is also a little strapped for cash at the moment.
Do your taxes?
Sticky, we're Republicans. We don't pay taxes.
So Penny rallies all the neighborhood kids into going on strike, but she is the only one taking it remotely seriously, until eventually she's the only one left. This leads to the rare tender moment between Oscar and Penny. I think it's fairly obvious why I feel this is the point where you can see the show's unique voice starting to take shape. With this being the first time Penny goes all in fighting for a cause, showing just how passionate and galvanizing she is. And of course it has that really sweet moment at the end. Like the best sitcoms, the Proud Family knows when to sprinkle in moments of the family showing genuine affection towards each other. Just enough where you can always feel the love between them, but never to a point where it becomes saccharine. Episode 5, Easy Jackster, is one of the most out there episodes of season 1. What I mean is most of the episodes this season follow standard sitcom plots, such as a parent entering their child into something to try and live through them, or through circumstances having two feuding characters share a room. But then there are a few that are just complete insanity that give you a taste of what the show will eventually become. So let's talk about the Matrix parody that is all about piracy.
DVD piracy is a crime and needs to be stopped.
In this episode, Penny gets her first paycheck at her new job at a record store, only to find out she actually owes the store money for how many CDs she's been buying. A boy she's interested in called Mega introduces her to this site called Easy Jackster. Subtle.
Click the blue mouse, you're at your desk playing ping again and you can believe whatever you want to. Click on the red mouse, you stay in Wonderland and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Okay, I get it, Morpheus. I'm not scared.
The site will download any song you search for to your computer, which Penny instantly becomes hooked on and starts introducing the other teens of Wizville and eventually the entire world to, which naturally catches the attention of Wizard Kelly, who launches a full assault on Penny. Trudy brings Penny back to her senses momentarily before Mega messes her up all over again. This results in the music store being forced out of business, thus causing Penny to finally end things with Mega and fly off into the night. I've watched this episode 3 times and I still don't know how I feel about it. It's supposed to be a Matrix parody, yet that aspect of the episode doesn't really last beyond the 7-minute mark. Then it's a story about how piracy is a crime because it hurts the morally corrupt capitalists, but there's also a lot of dialogue that makes the episode an allegory for both cults and drugs. It's strange, and I would honestly not be surprised if you told me the executives wanted them to make an episode about piracy because, you know, Disney. I also love how this episode about how piracy is wrong is part of a show that is currently on a streaming service that only has 1 season available, so... Episode 11, 7 Days of Kwanzaa, is the series' first holiday episode, and one of the few cartoon episodes to actually educate its audience on the titular holiday. The episode opens with the Prouds coming across a homeless family while out Christmas shopping, to which Oscar is his usual self. The family disappears, but Trudy makes Oscar go and find them, and this may very well be the worst thing Oscar has ever done, or at least in the top 3. When they find the family, whose names are Joseph, Margaret and Stephanie, Penny invites them over for Christmas, only to learn the family don't actually celebrate Christmas, as each of them starts to call out the Prouds for their materialism and for being cogs in the machine of capitalism. And because they were invited over for the holidays, they show up the next day so they can celebrate the spirit of Kwanzaa with the Prouds.
Kwanzaa! It's a cultural holiday based on African principles.
Over the next 7 days, the families celebrate the values of unity, self-determination, responsibilities, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. And by the end, even Oscar has really embraced the spirit of Kwanzaa. Once they've parted ways, Oscar is able to find Joseph a job opportunity with Felix's construction company. But when they go to the shelter, they don't find them. However, they do find a family with the same names and occupations, so Oscar gives them Felix's card as the Prouds head back home, appreciating all they've been taught over the past few days. Episode 12, Makeover, is my favourite episode of the Proud family's first season. The episode focuses on the Gross sisters tasking Penny with giving Olay a makeover, following Zoe's new look starting to attract all the attention of the boys. As once more, Penny's friends try and leave her to dry, but she isn't letting them get out of it that easy. Meanwhile, Trudy and Oscar audition the twins for a commercial as Oscar starts his epic rivalry with Red-Nosed Baby, an infant with sunken eyes and the voice of an adult man who exists purely to torment Oscar. Told you the show was weird. After her makeover, Olay is finally beautiful. And by that, I mean thinner. Yes, season 1 of the Proud family has a decent amount of underlying fat phobia. But again, I'll address that in more detail later on in the video. But without Olay, the Gross sisters are no longer a threat, so they want her back. Only for Penny to tell them that Olay likes her new life and she doesn't want to go back. Zoey then pulls Penny aside and tells her she's doing exactly what Nubia did, speaking for Olay without taking her feelings into consideration. Penny goes back and apologizes, telling Olay that whatever she does should be up to her before giving her a friendship bracelet. And it seems Olay wants to stay as she is now, until she gets her heart broken off screen and goes back to being Nubia and Gina's muscle. But then it's revealed she's still wearing the bracelet, thus ending the episode on a somewhat uplifting note. Despite my issues with Olay having to slim down to be more beautiful, I still adore this episode, and it is mainly for Olay. I love how they were able to give so much depth to a mute character whose role in the series is just to stand there and look intimidating. Even though it only lasts a minute, I do like how the episode calls out Penny for not allowing Olay to make her own choices. And even though it has to have the status quo reset by the end and Olay and Penny's friendship never comes up again, it's a really wholesome note to end the episode on as we see that Olay has finally made her own decision. Episode 14, I Had a Dream, is easily the most well-known episode of the Proud Family, and to this day, what has largely defined the show's legacy. The episode opens with Penny's history teacher, Mr. Webb, passing out class assignments, where the kids will have to dress up and write reports on important black icons who are often overlooked during Black History Month. While out in the hall, the kids are messing with the school janitor, but Penny slips and hits her head during the getaway. Before she heads off to school the next day, Sugar Mama makes Penny take Puff to the groomers, when they get sucked into a tornado and dropped off at school, but something seems off. No one can understand Penny's 90s slang, Mr. Webb is the janitor, and Zoey has no idea who Penny is. Eventually she learns she's somehow gone back to 1955. While Penny is explaining everything to Sticky, they happen upon a distraught Zoey crying over her sick bird. Penny takes her to Trudy, who tends to the bird. Zoey and Penny go upstairs to play with the twins as Penny asks why everyone at school is separated, and Zoey tells her that integration is new.
It's gonna take time for people to get used to it, if they ever get used to it.
What if I were to tell you that one day people would get used to it, for the most part, that is?
I wouldn't believe it.
Well, get ready, because it's going to happen. And when it does, people like you and me are going to be the best of friends. Although the SATs will still be culturally biased in your favor, but it'll be better than it is now.
Ooh.
When they get to school, Penny and Zoey walk into class and sit down next to each other, refusing to move until eventually the rest of the class joins them. Following a quick song, everyone sits on the steps of the school facing an angry mob. Once Penny gets their attention, she begins a rendition of the famous Martin Luther King Jr. speech the episode is named after. Then Penny wakes up in the nurse's office surrounded by everyone, now having witnessed firsthand just how important Black history is. This is such a fantastic episode. Even the things that usually get on my nerves, like the "it was all just a dream" ending, are really effective here, both because it makes the title a clever double entendre and the final scene is very effective in delivering the episode's message of those who don't know their history won't have a future. And on top of that, the episode does have a lot of educational value. It does teach its audience about a ton of important figures in Black history that they might not have heard about otherwise. Plus, it's just plain funny.
Hey, where's the dishwasher?
Dishwasher? Oh, you're the dishwasher, sweetheart.
Episode 18 is
The Altos.
In the episode, Penny starts to worry about Sticky when he starts hanging around a group of thugs who call themselves the Altos, especially when she learns his parents are getting divorced. And when Penny tells her parents about what's going on, Oscar agrees to spend some time with Sticky and try talking to him. And even though it doesn't help, it is nice to see that for once Oscar's heart is in the right place. But Sticky is there with ulterior motives, to steal the answers for Wizard Kelly's upcoming scavenger hunt for the Altos. But when Sticky learns they're planning to rob Wizard Kelly, he starts having second thoughts. Even though that's the only morally correct thing this trio of failed American Idol contestants has done, when the crowd starts calling the whole thing a fix, the Wiz dips out and dumps all the blame on Oscar. Sticky comes clean at the last second as everyone else sticks up for him. There's not an awful lot about this one, but it is commendable with how the show went about tackling divorce and the effect it can have on a child. It's a surprisingly great episode for Oscar as he tries to genuinely help Sticky and guide him away from the Altos. It's also one of the more down-to-earth episodes where the show's usual high energy takes a back seat to a more serious story that examines one of the show's most prominent side characters. Episode 19 is called Hip Hop Helicopter and is about the girls preparing to compete for a dance competition on their favourite show, Hip Hop Helicopter, which they end up winning, but their parents aren't happy with how revealing the outfits they chose to wear were for their age. The next day, the girls, now known as LPDZ, are enjoying the fact they are now local celebrities, as they receive invitations to a high school party. Only conditions are they have to lie about their age and wear the same outfits, and after some peer pressure, Penny agrees. And things seem to be fine, until the guys at the party start to make them very uncomfortable.
Yeah, all they want to do is, well, I don't know exactly what they want to do, but we're not doing it.
So they decide to bounce, and just as it seems they're in the clear, that's when all the parents arrive back home. This is another episode that touches upon an extremely relevant issue that I wish was discussed a lot more: the sexualization of teenage girls in society, especially in the music industry. I'm not the person to give a full breakdown on how this practice came about and why society is so fixated on making children appeal to the male gaze as much as possible. It's sad and disgusting that not only has this episode held up, but is even more relevant now than it was 20 years ago, as we live in a world where girls as young as 8 years old are feeling this pressure to look conventionally attractive. And if that doesn't make you want to get shot into the sun at this very moment, then you are part of the problem. Okay, let's end season 1 on a slightly lighter note with episode 21, Love Thy Neighbor. When Oscar accidentally sets fire to the Boulevardists' house, they quickly put it out, only for the fire brigade to come along and finish the job for them. So the Prouds offer them a place to stay during the 2 weeks it'll take to repair the house, meaning Penny and Lacienega have to share a room. Lacienega wastes no time trying to destroy Penny's life, but things take a turn during a swim test when, well...
I knew it was too good to be true. No fins allowed.
Coach Daddy, those aren't fins. Those are her feet.
Lacienega goes into a depressive state over the next few days, and every time someone tries talking to her, it only makes things worse. Until eventually Penny suggests that Oscar try talking to her, and after a rocky start, Oscar does manage to help her embrace what makes her different.
If it turns sideways, it disappears. Look at this. Presto.
For her beauty pageant, Lacienega does a swim routine and wins, thanking Penny as a friend, thus bringing a somewhat end to their rivalry. And this is one of the only times the show made a prominent change to the status quo, as despite the fact these two will continue to clash in season 2, they are overall a lot less hostile towards each other. Love Thy Neighbor serves as a great bookend to season 1 of the Proud family, as after 20 episodes of build-up, the show finally humanized Lacienega and developed her into so much more than the vain popular bully stereotype, as well as providing my favorite Oscar moment from the show. But it also does show how much the series has developed since Bring It On. That harsh, cruel tone has gotten a lot softer over time as the characters start to succeed a lot more often, and the cartoonish elements have been toned down a lot by the end. At the beginning, we had Penny forming a psychic link with a circus tiger, and by the end, we're getting stories like The Altos and Hip Hop Helicopter. While it may sound like the series has lost its unique voice and settled into being a more standard family sitcom, it still brings this unique perspective to all these stories and somehow always finds some unique angle when it goes into much more complicated themes. And that's The Proud Family Season 1. An undoubtedly very strong freshman year for the show that has already gone through quite the evolution, creating the perfect marriage between a TGIF sitcom and a classic Warner Brothers cartoon that really shouldn't work as well as it did. It was able to turn out something that felt so fresh and real while also still having some of the sharpest writing I've ever seen in animation. No doubt setting the bar high for the Disney Channel cartoons that would follow it. Now before we move on to season 2, I'm going to take a brief intermission to highlight a certain aspect of the franchise that is often overlooked: the web series spin-off, The Proud Family Shorties. The Proud Family Shorties is a batch of 4 3-minute flash animated shorts that mainly focus on Sugar Mama, Puff and the twins, as they go about their lives while the universe conspires to torture Puff as much as possible. You know, for those people that enjoyed watching an innocent dog get slammed against a wall during season 1. There's not too much of note about these, to be honest. Obviously the animation is a massive downgrade, the humour isn't as strong since Sugar Mama is the only character with dialogue, and the stories really aren't anything special. In the first one, The Picnic, they all go out for a picnic, as Puff pretends to be Pappy just so he can get something to eat. So the babies drop a beehive on him. The second short is called The Beach, where Puff finds a magic lamp, but because he can't speak, he can't make any wishes, so Sugar Mama accidentally wastes them all. Let's Wrestle is the name of the third short, and easily the best of the bunch, as it's the only time in the entire franchise where Puff, Baby and Cece work together, when they have to fight quite possibly the worst robber ever who breaks into people's homes in broad daylight in order to steal 25 cents from a baby's piggy bank. The final short is called Toy Store, E, and it's all about Puff using a remote-controlled toy the twins are terrified of in order to torment them, which, let's be honest, they fully deserve. But still, the short ends with Sugar Mama getting them all silent dog whistles, once again proving that Puff's life consists of nothing but silent screams of agony. All in all, these were a fun little experiment of Disney Channel venturing into multimedia projects based on their shows. A practice that still continues to this day with the steady release of shorts based on their animated series to YouTube. However, if you wanted to skip over these while watching The Proud Family, you wouldn't be missing much. The most notable thing about these shorts is they would be the final time the series gave any focus to Puff, as with season 2, they kinda forgot about him. There's a lot of episodes he straight up doesn't appear in, and even when he does, it's mostly a silent cameo. I mean, I'm happy the series has progressed beyond the point of thinking animal abuse is funny, but it really does tell you how little thought the writers actually gave to Puff. And speaking of season 2, let's crack that bad boy open and see just how it deviates from season 1. Season 2 is, as of this time, the final season of The Proud Family and ran from 2002 to 2005, lasting 31 episodes, thus bringing the series total to 52. A Hero for Halloween was the first episode produced for this run of episodes and gives you a fairly good impression of the general style this season goes for: unapologetic insanity. This Halloween episode is about Penny gaining superpowers from eating Oscar's new snacks and using those powers to battle a ghost of a guy who used to own the Proud's house, who has risen from the dead to take the house and everyone in it back to the afterlife with him. The episode also features a guest appearance from Arnold Shortman's best friend, Little Romeo, and they introduced this by showing footage from his actual music videos. This is the only time the show ever used any live action footage. Something you'll quickly notice with season 2 is that it did not receive the same amount of budget that season 1 did. You can easily tell where certain corners had to be cut during production, especially in the later half of the season when some of the episodes are animated using Adobe Flash. But despite season 2 really embracing the cartoonish nature of the series, it still manages to continue the strong emotional storytelling from season 1, while also being a lot more eccentric and a lot less subtle. Take the episode Who You Callin' a Sissy, an episode that is the closest thing to a story about homophobia that early 2000s Disney would allow. In Michael's only spotlight episode, he becomes the target of bullying because of his more effeminate side, and Penny is perplexed how he just takes it all without ever wanting to dwell on it or make any attempt to stand up for himself. Meanwhile, slowly, every one of Michael's bullies are attacked by some kind of monster. Meanwhile, there's a story about Trudy, Sugar Mama, and Sunset attending salsa classes, which the boys laugh at and reject until they get jealous of their new dance partners and stalk them to the dance hall where they get their comeuppance. Which also leads to their wives forgiving them because according to sitcoms, the only way married people can show they love each other is by being jealous and possessive. Anyway, everything leads up to the school dance where the monster shows up and Penny confronts Michael, who has been bottling up his emotions until he explodes. And this scene is honestly phenomenal. Penny helping Michael let out his emotions in a much more positive way that finally allows him to stand up for himself as everyone apologizes and they enjoy the dance. I'll admit the message gets a little muddled due to the more fantastical elements. Michael's classmates don't see the error of their ways because bullying and homophobia are wrong, but rather because they're terrified of what Michael will become if they push him too far. Yet it's still a very strong Michael-centric story with some powerful scenes and another great showing as to why Penny is such an amazing main character that's worth at least a watch. Just skip over the B-plot. A Star is Scorned was the episode that aired as the season premiere and features the return of LPDZ as they perform a new song about how they're best friends and that's the way it's always gonna be. Really. When out of nowhere, Wizard Kelly appears and offers them a record deal. So they start touring and quickly begin climbing the charts. But Penny is getting far more attention than the others, leading to Wizard Kelly dropping Lacienega, Dijonay, and Zoey. Under her new name, Penny continues to rule the world with her new self-centered attitude. However, Penny quickly grows tired of this life and wants her old friends back. The friends who have ditched her and left her out in the cold every chance they got, yet now that the few shoes on the other foot, it's Penny that's in the wrong. Anyway, they do eventually make up, and that's how the episode ends. I wanted to talk about this episode because this is where the show starts to treat Penny with this bizarre double standard, where no one else has to face the consequences for their actions except her. The second Penny gives her friends the same cold shoulder they've always given her, that's when she needs to make things right. Thankfully, we do get some kind of resolution to this in the episode Adventures in Babysitting, where Penny finally admits how unreliable Dijonay is and says despite the fact they can still be friends, she can no longer trust her, which is a big moment for Penny's character development that unfortunately never gets followed up on. Continuing on that same idea is the episode Poetic Justice, another Penny and Dijonay episode that kinda wants to have a point and say something about their relationship, it just doesn't know what that is. Penny has become quite the sensation in the world of spoken word poetry in preparation for an upcoming poetry contest sponsored by... guess who? Dijonay wants to enter but has doubt in her abilities, so Penny offers to help her write something. Dijonay stuns everyone with her poem about her frustrations with living in such a small house with her large family, but Penny is annoyed and at last cuts Dijonay out of her life, but for all the wrong reason.
But I'll tell you this much. If you don't wise up, and wise up soon, you're gonna lose a very good friend in the process.
Will she? Will she though? On the day of the contest, Penny unleashes a slam poem about Dijonay's betrayal, and she responds with a heartfelt poem about how their friendship is the most important thing to her, which would probably be more impactful if she ever actually acted like it did. Dijonay wins but isn't there to collect her prize as Penny and her are out in the alley making up. I can't tell if this episode actually makes Dijonay likable or if it only seems that way because of how far they had to drag down Penny. I can see this really sweet and resonant message trying to get out, but it just can't escape the confused mess of tones and characterizations that completely engulf this one. I will say though, the poems themselves are actually really good and easily the most entertaining part of the episode. Also, it introduces one of two major additions to the cast for this season, Peebo, the Proud's 9-year-old neighbor who constantly annoys Oscar and causes him to bring great physical pain onto himself. He's okay. He is voiced by Cree Summer though, so that is a huge plus. Episode 12 is called... this title that I won't be saying out loud, and is one of the few episodes to focus on Sugar Mama's and Oscar's relationship. Throughout the series, these two have not exactly been the most openly affectionate towards each other. From the information we're given, it's fair to come to the conclusion that Sugar Mama has never shown Oscar any semblance of love throughout his entire life, which it's not hard to argue has led to the person he's become. So this episode has quite the task ahead of it if it's going to try and show some warmth between them. Sugar Mama enters her Get Up and Go bars in the Professional Snack Makers Association snack-off against Oscar and wins. All the companies want Sugar Mama to sign with them, but the only company she wants to give them to are Proud Snacks. So Sugar Mama and Oscar start working together and it goes great. The two are not only incredibly successful, but for the first time ever seem to actually be enjoying each other's company. But good things aren't meant to last as soon. Wizard Kelly catches wind of this and wants to buy Get Up and Go bars. You know, after his team of scientists were unable to steal the recipe. Wizard offers them $2 million, but Sugar Mama isn't selling and tears up the contract.
Oscar, you always say I don't believe in you. Truth is, you don't believe in yourself. Why would you take $2 million?
Let me think. Maybe because it's $2 million more than I thought I'd ever see in my entire pathetic life?
Then Sugar Mama breaks out in a rendition of the song Believe in Yourself from the 1970s musical The Wiz. And it's a very tender and emotional scene where Sugar Mama tells Oscar that she really does believe in him. This inspires Oscar to reject the non-musical Wiz's offer, as the family then flies out to Chicago where Sugar Mama has booked a guest appearance on Oprah, where she is going to reveal to the world how she makes Get Up and Go bars, which we've been getting subtle hints to throughout the episode.
Well, let's just say I put my foot in it.
So when it's finally revealed that she wasn't joking, everyone is naturally repulsed. Oscar sees the ship sinking and calls up Wizard Kelly, realizing this isn't a live show, only to learn via the Wiz this is a special event live Oprah, which I'm not entirely convinced he didn't have some hand in that fact. So yeah, even though it all goes up in smokes, it was really nice to see, just for one episode, Oscar and Sugar Mama actually working together and having a healthy relationship. The Believe in Yourself scene is easily one of my personal favourite moments from the show for that reason, and And we're keeping the focus on Oscar, as the next episode we'll be looking at, 1 in a Million, is the best Oscar episode of the series. It starts with Oscar about to head off to a basketball game, and when Penny wants to go, he quickly shuts her down.
Basketball is a man's sport.
Then explain the WNBA.
Like I said, it's a man's sport. Have you seen those chicks? They got more facial hair than Sugar Mama.
Okay, so not a good start to Oscar's best episode. Sunset takes the tickets from Felix and all the girls head to the game. During the game, the wizard announces a promotion where the winner gets to choose a person to take a shot for them at half court, and if it goes in, they win 1 million. And big shock, Penny is the winner, and suddenly Oscar starts being unusually nice to her, giving her anything she wants, but she knows he's only doing it so she'll choose him to take the shot. Penny holds tryouts for who'll get to take the shot, and the undisputed winner seems to be Kobe. Oscar shows up in disguise, but it all unravels before he even gets a chance to try. Penny questions why this is so important to him, so Oscar takes us back to the moment when his current life began. Back in high school, Oscar was a star basketball player until one day during a game he was neck and neck with Wizard Kelly, and when it came down to the wire, he took a shot at half court.
I elevated a shot. It was a perfect, pretty shot. I knew it was going in the moment it left my hand. And what happened next was an X-Files case. The ball hit the back of the rim and flew like it had money on the game. 94 feet to the other end of the court into the Wizard's basket. And the rest is, as they say, history.
And that's when Wizard Kelly became the Wiz and Oscar Proud became a failure. So he wants to take the shot as he sees it as a chance to redeem himself. But Penny isn't listening. The day of the big shot arrives and Wizard takes this time to remind the world and Penny of what a joke Oscar is and the one moment from decades ago that has defined his life. In that moment, Penny realizes what this means to her dad and chooses him to take the shot. So Oscar makes it down there lightning fast. This is it. The entire crowd starts chanting Oscar's name, then everything falls silent as he takes the shot. Now, if this was season 1, there is no chance he'd make it. The exact same thing from 20 years ago would happen again, and the episode would end with Oscar standing in a dark, empty stadium with Penny reaffirming he's still her hero. But this isn't season 1, so... So, Oscar did it. He made up for his past and won Penny the 1 million. Wizard dollars, which are only valid at certain establishments that can only be used on Thursdays and Fridays. Because even though this is season 2, the world will not stop beating this poor family down, but they try and make the best of it as Penny invites the entire stadium for ice cream on them. I think this might be my favourite episode of the show. We're all very much aware by now of my affinity for episodes that act as in-depth character studies, and this is yet another great example. But another type of episode I love are the ones that are able to almost completely change my perception of a character. And this episode turned Oscar from a character who just frustrated and annoyed me to someone I am actively rooting for and want to see get better. It really highlighted the more tragic aspects of his character, which, while it doesn't excuse the raging misogyny and selfishness, does manage to humanize him even further beyond the brief glimpses into his better qualities we received in season 1. But after 2 surprisingly heart-tugging episodes that examine and build upon relationships in the family, it's time to return to the weirdness with Tweentown, which follows up on A Hero for Halloween in terms of showing us what happens when the Proud family lets go of reality and gives into its cartoony nature. Al Roker is opening a teen nightclub in the mall, so all the girls lie to their parents so they can be there. They're all caught as Penny is put to work. She goes up to her room where she wishes that all the adults were gone, which is when Al Roker appears on her TV. Then on her computer saying he can make her wish come true. So turns out the devil wears a suit and glasses as Penny has now made a deal with him and all the adults are gone. And if you've seen Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, you already know where this is going. The kids enjoy their new world until they start missing their parents, so Penny tries to call the deal off until Roker reveals their parents now belong to him.
What have you done with our parents?
They're busy making my new line of one-size-fits-all Roker wear.
So in order to get their parents back, Penny has to beat him in a double dutch contest, something we learned earlier that Penny is very skilled at.
You want me to double dutch for my parents?
And BB and Cece as well, because if you lose, I get them all. This is my family pack value deal.
Roker beats Penny's score by 1,000,004 by 1, but just as Penny is about to lose BB and Cece, that's when Bobby shows up. He wasn't taken by Roker since he's a kid at heart, and since Al didn't get rid of all the adults, the contract is null and void, so all the adults come back and everything is back to normal. Is there anything else I can really add to this one? How can I possibly sum up how outrageous this episode is? It's definitely the episode of the show with the most okay, hear me out moments. But let's bring the conversation back to the girls, more specifically, Zoey, as the episode Penny Potter is the only episode that really gives her a focused storyline. Up until now, the closest we've gotten to a solo Zoey epic is in the episode Makeover, but her arc, if you could even call it that, was really just set up for the actual story of the episode, which was about Olay. Also, don't worry, that title did scare me, but this episode has nothing to do or in common with a certain book series created by a living piece of human garbage. The students are on a bus checking out their new yearbook when they discover everyone got nominated for something except Zoey. But wait, it gets worse.
Hold up, Zoey. I don't even see your picture in here. I should be right after. They've got another picture of Lacienega where I should be.
This leads to Zoey thinking there's nothing special about her, but we'll come back to that in a sec as Penny's famous Auntie Spice, who is also Sugar Mama's sister, has come to visit. A woman with magical powers who claims she can teach them to others. Her and Sugar Mama have never really gotten along because ever since they were kids, Spice was the one who got all the attention, especially from their parents.
Kinda like how you treat Oscar?
No, I don't see that at all. Bobby, here, baby, your nose is running.
During a demonstration of her powers, Spice picks Zoey and for the first time helps her feel special by unlocking her true power. She then reveals her show at the Wiz Arena was cancelled, so Oscar offers her the use of the Proud Snacks parking lot for her mind-bending fair, as she then turns it into a business deal, basically leaving Oscar to take care of everything, but things are not what they seem. On the night of the show, the wizard is perplexed why his economy has come to a standstill and goes to investigate, where he finds Bobby and Sugar Mama at the theatre and learns of the mind-bending fair, as he then tells them they must put a stop to this because, as we all know, no one in this town not named the Wiz is allowed to make money. They show up at the show and accuse Spice of conning everyone and makes her leave the stage so Zoey can prove whether or not she actually has the power. So Spice tries to make a run for it, only to be stopped by Sugar Mama, who uses some quick thinking to defeat her and get the money back for Oscar.
You do like me, Mama. You really like me.
Well, sometimes I like you, but I always love you. Remember that.
And things work out okay for Zoey, as being a crook and landing on the front page is actually a good way to feel special. Who knew? The next episode I'll be looking at brings the show back down to earth momentarily. Wedding Bell Blues focuses on Sugar Mama getting a new boyfriend called Clarence, who Oscar worries may be using her for her money. So he hires a private investigator who learns Clarence has been around town a few times before, if you know what I'm saying. But before Oscar and Trudy can intervene, Sugar Mama reveals her and Clarence are due to be married. After a quick montage of Sugar Mama getting back in shape, the day of the wedding arrives and things go off without a hitch. Literally, there is no hitch, because Clarence's son appears and reveals he's not the man everyone thought he was, and is in fact named Rasco Carrington III, the only man in town richer than the Wiz. He is suffering from dementia and does this exact thing every few months. Sugar Mama is reimbursed for all the money she spent, but still has to endure the heartbreak of letting Clarence go. And after one bite of cake, she transforms back into her old self. Trust me, we'll get to it eventually. The episode follows a generic plot for most of it, and you think you have a good idea where it's going to go, but then it pulls out that devastating twist at the very end, and it is devastating. Watching the rug completely get pulled out from under Sugar Mama as her new fairy tale goes up in smokes. It falls in line with a trend you really notice in season 2. Many episodes seem to be going down this typical sitcom storyline, and then the last act slaps you across the face with cruel reality. Okay, after that, I really need something lighthearted. Well, the next episode, Thelma and Lewis, sort of offers that in some areas and is perhaps even more depressing in others, but we'll get to that. We open with Felix and Oscar discussing how Pappy is starting to get senile. As of late, he's been wandering off, not hearing people correctly, and if he gets one more strike, Sunset says he's got to go. Well, that strike comes when he accidentally floods the entire house. They go and tour the Happy Endings retirement home, led by Helga, and Lacienega's having a difficult time accepting this change, and here's where the episode starts to get a little too real for me. Without going into detail, because I try and keep things mostly lighthearted around here, so I'll just say I know how Lacienega feels, and yeah, it sucks. But before we can dwell on that for too long, it's revealed the retirement home is just a facade, as they've imprisoned all the residents and make them work on a farm. There is a lot more forced labour in this show than I was expecting. The next day, Lacienega brings the girls to the home so they can see Pappy, only to find the place completely abandoned and everything is a lot faker than they remember. They quickly uncover what's actually going on, but are spotted and have to make a quick getaway. When they bring their parents, however, the resort has been able to cover up the whole thing, and the only one who sees right through the lies is Sugar Mama. So she rounds up the girls on Sticky so they can go save Pappy, and after that, they drop the kids off before setting off on their new lives on the lam. They head towards Vegas, but Helga is right on their tail. So now it's an epic chase with Sugar Mama, Pappy, Helga, the Prouds, the Boulevardises, the Fuzz, and Oscar's private investigator friend who he called to help track them down. And of course, it ends with them teetering off a cliff, only to be saved thanks to the power of Bobby's car. Yeah, I haven't mentioned it yet, but this car can do literally anything. And once more, everything's happy and back to normal. Okay, so now we've started to reach the home stretch of the series where the show would usually start trying to at least somewhat wrap things up, bring any smaller storylines to a close, give its supporting characters a final hurrah, that sort of thing. But the Proud Family doesn't really do that. The show just kind of went ahead with business as usual up until the very end. However, for some reason, this show really loved Lacienega, as she's the only character whose arc finds some kind of conclusion during these penultimate episodes. So, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The final Lacienega episode. The Wizard is holding auditions for tween idol DP.
The PD stands for public domain, cause the Wizard doesn't like paying royalties, y'all.
The winner will receive a recording contract, a world tour, a film deal, and various other things tied directly to the Wiz, because does a person truly exist unless they're generating revenue for the Wiz? Oh, and there's also a chance to sing with Alicia Keys. But the only thing standing in everyone's way is Simon Cowell, Percival. While the girls are dealing with their nerves, in walks Agatha Ordinario, who, despite committing the biggest sin of all and not being a conventionally attractive middle schooler, gets through to the next round with Lacienega. And during the next round, they just continue to emphasize why I hate televised talent compositions, especially those involving kids.
This is the tween idol contest. Tween, as in young person, and idol, as in someone other kids would want to emulate. So let's be blunt. No one wants to be like you. Why? Because you do not look the part. I do, however, foresee a great voiceover career for you.
Despite that, Agatha and Lacienega both make it to the final round, and Agatha blows the crowd away with her performance, even getting through to Percival. Just as Lacienega is about to admit defeat, it turns out she's the winner. Shocking the audience, but Penny is the only one who seems to have a problem with this until she's told by the host of the contest that someone rigged the vote. Once she learns the truth, she takes the evidence to the Wiz and take a guess. Just take a wild guess as to what could possibly happen next.
The incredibly fine print on this intentionally biased to benefit the Wizard contract guides my conscience. And I quote, the producer, that's me, y'all, can alter the voting results at my discretion in the event the outcome does not suit my fancy.
But that's cheating!
No, it's a fix. You see, pretty sells and ugly repels. Money, that is.
What a twist! What a twist. So he deletes the evidence and says may the richest man win before sending them on their way. So the two sneak into Lacienega's dressing room and try and convince her to do the right thing. And when that doesn't work, Penny does not hold back.
Your show only goes on because you're prettier than Agatha. But you know what, Lacienega? For all it's worth, I'm looking at you right now and I've never seen anyone uglier.
And to ensure there won't be any more interruptions, the Wizard removes the host from his duties and takes over. Then Lacienega does the right thing.
This stage, this moment belongs to Agatha Ordinario, the real tween idol.
What? Oh, no.
So Agatha gets up and gets to sing, and afterwards she's able to get Lacienega a spot in Alicia Keys' newest music video. While I have serious issues with this episode, or just any piece of media that places beauty standards on literal children, I can't deny how well they handled Lacienega's story. While it isn't at the forefront of the episode, throughout you do see many small moments that give us some insight into how Lacienega feels. So when it comes to the moment she makes her choice to do the right thing in the end, it makes sense and feels completely justified. And as I mentioned, it does somewhat wrap up her character. We've seen her origins as a one-dimensional stereotype of a popular bully, to showing her deal with her insecurities and take pride in what makes her unique, and now we see her sacrifice something she really wanted more than anything because she knew there was someone who deserved it more. It's just a testament to how well some of the characters on this show were able to develop over time. And so we have made it to the final 3 Proud Family episodes I'll be discussing in this video, and also the final 3 episodes produced of the series' original run, starting with another one of the series' most famous episodes, Culture Shock. In this episode, the kids of Willie T. Ribbs Middle School take part in a week-long exchange program where they'll switch households for a week, thus giving them a chance to learn about the values and traditions of cultures other than their own. And Penny will be switching with Radhika Zamin, whose family is from Pakistan, and Penny reacts with shock and horror. On her first night, Mrs. Zamin presents Penny with a hijab.
I'm supposed to wear this on my head? Only if you want. I wear mine because I would rather be judged for who I am, not necessarily how I look. Besides, it's the perfect thing to wear when you're having a bad hair day.
Then Penny learns it's currently Ramadan, meaning the family are fasting. Needless to say, so far Penny isn't enjoying the experience. She runs into Mr. Webb, who teaches her the importance of Ramadan, and Penny realizes she needs to try and embrace this experience. Meanwhile, Radhika and the Prouds are having a great time, and after a while, Penny seems to fully embrace the Zamins as they decide to go out to a restaurant as Ramadan is now over.
Yes!
The Zamins also invite the Prouds, and everyone has a really nice time. But remember how I said that Season 2 loves luring you into a false sense of security?
Wow. Look, everybody. Who would do such a thing?
What the?
Oh, no.
The next day, the kids are talking about what this week has taught them, and when Penny takes the stand, gives a short but impactful speech about how the Zamins are just like any other family.
And if you know that, you could never write on their door, "Go back to your country, America for Americans." You just couldn't do it.
While for the first few minutes, I wasn't really sure where the episode was going to go, by the end, it turned into a fantastic episode about cultural differences and the unfortunate reality that many Americans face, especially during the time this episode was released. The Proud Family began airing only 4 days after 9/11, so this episode would have gone into production around that time when xenophobia and racism were running rampant, which still remains our reality today. Sadly, making this episode just as relevant now as it was back in 2004. This is one of those episodes of television that I feel everyone needs to see. It does fall victim to some of the show's other trappings, but its poignant and timeless message shines through. And now we arrive at what I consider to be the final episode of The Proud Family, even though it wasn't the last in production order nor airing order. She drives me crazy. Penny is excited for her upcoming big football game, but that's interrupted by Sugar Mama getting into a low-speed police chase. The family chase her down, which results in Penny getting a hairline fracture and thus not being able to play in the big game. We also learn Sugar Mama has been driving with an expired license, meaning it's now up to Trudy to take care of both of them. Eventually, Trudy is at her wit's end and she makes Oscar take Sugar Mama to renew her license. When they get there, she aces the eye and written test, but doesn't do so great in the actual driving test. Trudy goes to check up on her, and once again, the episode takes a very depressing turn, as Sugar Mama has to accept her age and starts to isolate herself from everyone for the next week. So they all head over there before the big game, but Sugar Mama is only getting worse, now just sitting around and refusing to go anywhere. Then the episode twists that knife in a little more by revealing Sugar Mama has gone almost entirely blind. She then confesses that she's been using Puff as her seeing eye dog and that he helped her pass all the tests at the DMV. So Dr. Payne gives her some new glasses, thus restoring Sugar Mama's will to live as she heads back to the DMV and passes her driving test. Then the episode ends with her dropping Penny off to support her team at the big game before losing her glasses and driving into the stands. While it isn't this deep, emotional journey that completely changes my perceptions on one of the characters like 1 in a million, the episode still gives us one final traditional sugar mama story that delivers some serious and impactful moments. There is this tragedy at seeing this usually loud woman who's full of life come to terms with the reality of her age, which sends her into this depressive spiral. It's one of the show's most sentimental episodes that highlights how much the family really do love each other. So how do you follow up a touching and powerful episode like that? With a Mariah Carey guest appearance, of course. Let's wrap up season 2 with the final episode that was produced for the Proud family, the Monkey Bidness. The episode is about Oscar's right-hand monkey, Mr. Chimps, who is hurt in a workplace accident, so Oscar brings him into Trudy's office. The exact same time, the harbinger of Christmas herself, Mariah Carey, comes by. She's there to get some aid for her monkey, Francois, who has fallen ill after ingesting Proud snacks. And through shenanigans, the monkeys get switched. None of the family are at all suspicious as to how Mr. Chimps is suddenly a gourmet chef who can expertly play the piano. All Oscar sees are dollar signs, as soon he's rolling in the dough, and after bailing them out of jail, the wizard hires them for a show. While backstage, Mr. Chimps and Francois come face to face and forcibly switch back, leaving Oscar humiliated as just before he arrogantly ripped up Wizard's check, which is probably for the best considering had he cashed it, that would mean the wizard would have owned him. So the episode ends with Oscar putting Mr. Chimps back to work, only for him to be saved thanks to the power of cartoon logic, thus bringing the Proud Family Season 2 to an end. Season 2 picked up from where Season 1 left off and threw it as high as it could go because every aspect of this show got turned up to 11. But with that said, Season 2 is still a great time that delves further into its diverse cast and delivers so many great storylines. There really were no creative limits placed on this stretch of episodes, and as a result, each one provides an entirely unique experience. From smaller, more sentimental stories to high-stakes adventure with adrenaline-pumping action and well-crafted social commentary, I do greatly respect just how wild the writers got with some of these ideas, and feel most of them did work to keep the show fresh and continue pushing the envelope while still staying true to the characters and core message of the series. Now, if you're familiar with the series and its legacy, you're no doubt aware of the show's less flattering aspects and wondering why I have yet to address them. Well, I wanted to make that just one section of the video rather than spreading it all out so that I could tackle it all together. I will say a lot of what I'm about to discuss are the same points brought up by the wonderful YouTuber Tony Briand in her video Colorism, Stereotypes, Racism and Misogyny in the Proud Family. I'll be leaving a card for that video in the corner as well as links in the description and comment section. Whether or not you leave this video now or go watch it after is entirely up to you, but I do implore you to go check it out as it is a very well constructed analysis of the series' more problematic elements that goes into far more detail than I ever could. First, let's talk about the series and its strange obsession with beauty standards. I've already touched upon this somewhat with Olay in the episode Makeover and how making her beautiful resulted in her gaining an hourglass figure, but there is an abundance of fat jokes throughout the series that are never funny and just really uncomfortable. I don't think it's intentional, but many times the show reaffirms this idea that only skinny people can be beautiful, which is just really gross. There's an episode in season 1 that does somewhat try and counteract this by preaching the revolutionary message that fat people are people too, but even that gets dragged down by the amount of jokes and gags made about a character's weight. Then there's the issue with misogyny that is present in many episodes. While it is always stated to be wrong, it is very abundant to the point where it just becomes excessive. When you keep bringing up harmful gender roles only to subvert them, that is signaling that this is an exception to the rule, which is not good. The show is also not immune from practicing colorism, particularly with how the show portrays Dejanay, one of the darkest skinned characters on the show who is characterized with many offensive and negative stereotypes that are targeted at black women. And her siblings all being named after spices is another harmful stereotype of people of color. Colorism is also present in Oscar, who receives the most negative portrayal of the main cast. Just to go down the list one more time, Oscar is shown to primarily be selfish, misogynistic, possessive, egocentric, irresponsible, and is entirely defined by his failures in both business and life in general. While they do provide some more depth and flesh him out as the series goes on, he never progresses beyond his role of being the butt of the joke. And this issue continues with the relationship between Dejanay and Sticky, which I have already discussed as being very creepy and, again, unsettling with how DeJohnette's obsessive stalking and harassment of Sticky is treated as a joke. But again, this perpetuates harmful stereotypes of black women having to chase after a man, which just makes the whole thing feel even more disturbing and an aspect of the show that should have never made it to air. This can also be applied to the relationship between Sugar Mama and Pappy. And sadly, there are other examples of the show perpetuating negative stereotypes or creating harmful depictions. The Gross Sisters are the show's only prominent Jamaican representation, and they're presented as violent thugs. The Asian characters are all hyper-intelligent and have strict parents who only focus on their child's grades. These writing and characterization issues were wrong back then and they're wrong today. And it's important we acknowledge the show's shortcomings just as much as we praise it for all the good it was able to do, as only by calling out harmful depictions in the media can we strive towards better representation. And that is exactly what I hope will be the case with the show's revival. Like most Disney shows, The Proud Family wasn't cancelled due to a dip in the ratings, but rather just Disney didn't want to fund it anymore. However, unlike most Disney shows, The Proud Family did not go quietly into that good night. Oh no. If it was going out, it was going to go out in a huge spectacle only fitting of this series. But before we get into all that, we should probably first address the Lilo and Stitch crossover that came out during the final days of the show. So the last time I looked at Lilo and Stitch the series, it was for the episode Lax, an episode that was a crossover designed to cross-promote with Recess, a show that had finished airing 5 years prior. I didn't have the warmest reception to it, however I am pleased to say that Spats is a much better episode that feels a little less like a confusing corporate mandate. In the episode, Jumba and Pleakley are opening up a bed and not breakfast. Cute. This weekend they have an important hotel inspector who will be writing a review of the establishment, and he prefers things to be absolutely silent. So of course that's the exact same time the Proud Family are staying there. They've come to Hawaii because Wizard Kelly is hosting a wrestling match there, most likely because he's looking to expand his empire. As Penny reveals, she's been tasked with writing an article about her vacation for her school paper, but Experiment 397 is activated and has the power to make people argue. Already the foundation of this episode is much stronger than the Recess one. The Prouds are given a full introduction and a reason to be there. Penny's story about writing for her school paper is built on a reference to an episode of the series, and an experiment that makes people fight is perfect for a crossover with this show. You also do get the sense the writers of this episode were big fans of the Proud Family, as there's a lot of fun moments that make sense for the characters, with the highlight of the whole thing being Sugar Mama versus Gantu. But it can't all be good. There must be something I can complain about here. Well, kinda. While the episode is incredibly fun, it does have the same problem the other Lilo and Stitch crossovers have. These shows just don't go together. My issue with Lax is the crossover breaks Recess, whereas here it's the opposite. Putting the Proud Family and Lilo and Stitch together kind of breaks Lilo and Stitch. The episode ends with Penny realizing she can reverse the effects of the experiment by counting to 10. So everyone is saved as Lilo realizes the one place Spats truly belongs is with Wizard Kelly. So he can make his wrestling matches feel more real by making the fighters actually want to kill each other. Lilo, sweetie, honey, stop right where you are. You did not just give one of the most potentially powerful weapons in the galaxy to Wizard. It all started with an orange basketball, owns the entire town, and will steamroll over anyone who interferes with his underhanded business practices, Kelly. Like, Penny? You want to step in and say anything to stop this naive child from giving an alien experiment designed for taking over worlds to a man you know only values money and will ruin the lives of anyone if it means slightly increasing his bottom dollar? Just gonna stay silent and let this happen? Okay. And now we have only just one more piece of Proud Family media to discuss, because the show was able to have a somewhat definitive ending in the form of a big TV movie that would cap off the show's original run. And the most remarkable thing about the finale is that Disney treated it like the finale.
The Proud Family. The Proud Family.
Now that may not sound like a huge accomplishment, but for Disney, that's impressive. Especially when just a few months prior, Kim Possible edits potential finale TV movie So the Drama in the middle of season 3. And my rare praise for Disney's scheduling decisions doesn't end there, as they ensured the Proud Family movie would be the final word of the franchise. A week before the movie, they had the Lilo and Stitch crossover, then the movie was preceded by the premiere of the final episode of season 2 they had yet to air. I'm sorry I'm harping on this, but I do have to give them props. They made a good decision regarding the airing of one of their shows. On to the actual movie itself, the family are getting ready to celebrate Penny's 16th birthday, confirming the entire series has taken place over the course of 2 years. But Penny and her friends have other things on their mind, mainly becoming backup dancers for 15 cents. Oscar, meanwhile, has an audition to get into the Wizards Academy for Snack Technology and Education, but that naturally goes how you'd expect. He's engineered a formula that will both multiply his snacks and hopefully improve their taste, but it ends up exploding in his face. As security drags him away, Oscar proclaims his formula has no expiration date, which is overheard by this guy. This is Dr. Carver, the great-grandson of George Washington Carver. He's plotting to take over the world with an army of sentient peanut soldiers, but his formula isn't quite yet stable as he witnesses the literal meaning of perishable goods. So he forms a plan to steal Oscar's formula and begin his global takeover. Back with the family, tensions are high between Penny and Oscar after he caught her kissing 15 Cent, leading to Oscar grounding her indefinitely and cancelling her birthday. And here is where the movie really starts to feel like a big finale. Throughout the series, a running joke has been whenever Penny feels she's being treated unfairly by her parents, she'll make some snide comment under her breath, and once she's asked what she said, she quickly changes her tune.
Did you finish your chores?
Yes.
What about the dusting? Downstairs and upstairs?
These people make me sick.
What did you say?
Got it covered, sir.
So when we get to this moment in the movie, you're expecting something along those lines. That's when it hits the fan.
I wish you weren't my daddy.
What did you say?
I said I wish you weren't my daddy!
Dr. Carver shows up at their door in disguise and invites them to his remote island, which the family assume Sugar Mama won in the sweepstakes. Penny and Oscar object until Trudy puts her foot down and says they're all going in the hopes this trip will help them reconnect. And I'm going to stop the synopsis here because from this point on, the movie completely flies off the handle and there are so many plot twists that I dare not spoil a single thing more for those of you who haven't seen it. For a movie based on a cartoon, I gotta say the production values of this movie are incredible. For starters, this is in fact a full movie with a runtime of 85 minutes, which is a rarity for TV movies based on cartoons, which typically get cut off around the 70-minute mark. Those extra minutes may not sound like a lot, but they make the world of difference, dramatically improving the film's pacing and leaving room for a lot of big set pieces that helps accentuate the grander scale you're expecting from a big budget movie. As a finale, the Proud Family movie is very effective in wrapping up the series and sending out all the characters on a good note, with the heart of the movie being centered around Penny and Oscar's relationship that provides a really strong emotional core that carries the movie through to the end. As far as humor goes, it's the same fast-paced dialogue and occasionally risque moments you've come to expect from the series, which is only furthered by the absurdity of the plot. I knew the rough premise of the film, but I was still doubtful it was ever going to top Penny challenging Al Roker to jump rope to save all the adults in town from working in a sweatshop, yet it did. This is one of the most bizarre and nonsensical stories for an animated movie I have ever seen, and that is why I love it so much. It's exactly what I wanted to bookend a show like this, and is now one of my favourite movies based on a cartoon. And for the next 14 years, that was the end of the Proud Family. This show was a rarity in the animation landscape, being set in this surreal, wacky world, and while having quite a few problematic elements, tackled such hard-hitting real-world issues that, you can't deny, resonated with a lot of people. It had a very successful run and a near-perfect finale, thus cementing it as one of Disney's greatest shows. So when the executives were looking at legacy content they could give a new life on their brand new streaming service, it was only natural that the Proud Family would be one of the first in the pipeline to make a comeback. And on August 14th, 2019, Tommy Davidson, who plays Oscar, decided he couldn't be bothered waiting for Disney to announce the revival and took it into his own hands.
Oh, I forgot to tell you that.
What?
Proud Family's coming back.
And before anyone had the chance to speculate on what this new series would be, he cleared it all up.
New episodes.
Okay.
So the next few months were an agonizing wait for Disney to finally announce this thing we already knew about. And we'd have to hold our breath for a while because they didn't officially announce the revival until February 27th, 7th, 2020, where it was given its official title, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. The new season will take place 3 years after the original series and will feature almost the entire cast from the original run returning to reprise their roles. The one big exception so far being Michael, who will now be voiced by E.J. Johnson as opposed to Phil Lamar. The recasting does of course basically confirm the new series will explore Michael's sexuality in far more depth than the original series was able to, as he's also the character to receive the biggest redesign, and I gotta say, he looks fabulous. I am very eager to see how the series is going to handle this development. But of course, we gotta have some new characters in the mix, and so far we've been introduced to 3, with there being a lot of contention surrounding the new character, Maya Leibotz Jenkins, played by Keke Palmer, who's been in a slew of other things, but she'll always be True Jackson VP to me. Maya has been described as a 14-year-old activist, which a lot of people have taken issue with because Disney is catering to the social justice warrior or some other nonsense people say when they want to complain about characters in a piece of media that isn't a straight white man. The people complaining about this have either never seen the Proud Family or don't remember the Proud Family, because these characters used to hold protests every other episode. The vibe I'm getting is that Maya is sort of a reflection of Penny's character during the beginning of the original series, which is why she's 14 years old. But who knows, maybe it could be something entirely different. Either way, I'm going to wait until we get some more information and hopefully some footage of her in action before I make any judgments. The other 2 new characters are Maya's adopted parents, Barry and Randall, who will be played by Zachary Quinto and Billy Porter respectively. Again, not too much to say on them until we actually see something that shows their personalities. The last thing we received up till now regarding the series is the character designs, with the only ones of note being Penny and her friends because those are the only ones with any major changes. Most of them look really good. I mean, I love Zoe's new jacket, but I'm not sure I like what they've done to Penny, but I think that just might be because I'd gotten used to how she looked in the promotional art we'd seen, but maybe when I actually see her animated, it'll look fine. And that's as much as we know at this point. As of this time, we have no word on if Sticky, the Gross Sisters, or Wizard Kelly will be in the revival. Sticky is kind of in an odd place since his original voice actor isn't really someone Disney would want to be associated with them anymore, though they could easily recast him. As for when we will finally be blessed with new Proud Family content, all we know at this point is the series will premiere sometime in 2022. As for me, I was already really excited for this series just because it's a full-on revival of an older Disney cartoon, which is a first in Disney TVA's 35-year history. But now having actually watched the entire series, this is one of my most anticipated animated projects of next year. The Proud Family is the perfect series to do a modern revival with, as I feel with how the landscape of modern television animation has changed, it gives the revival a great opportunity to not only match the original but far surpass it. A few times in the series, you could feel the writers really wanting to explore a certain topic only for standards and practices to kick down the door. But now, thanks to shows like The Owl House, the Proud Family can really go all in on the types of stories they want to tell, and already we're starting to see how the show is taking advantage of this new environment. Regardless of how the revival turns out, the Proud Family is such a remarkable show that stands out from anything else to ever come from Disney television. From its well-defined and hilarious characters, its unique and visually appealing art style, its wacky yet cynical world, and of course, its genius dialogue that even 20 years later remains just as hard-hitting and hilarious as ever. While it's got a lot of issues to work out, I for one am very eager to see what the Prouds will get up to next. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe and comment down below as it helps me out a whole lot. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and I'll see ya real soon.